Hey everyone, Panem here again. Today, well, after quite a few of the viewers and fans out there have asked for a budget build, I decided to make one, especially for you guys, and it's the newest Lair of Darkness structure deck, budget build playable deck. So obviously, since this is a budget build, I wouldn't play this at big tournaments, but you can use this to inspire your own version of the deck that might have more budget than this one, and use that in bigger tournaments. But for the moment, this is more or less a local build. This can play at a pretty decent level. It's not going to guarantee you wins, but rare are the local versions capable of doing that. Still, I tried to stay as close as possible to the 3 structure deck plus maybe $20 of pocket money and some random stuff, but I tried to stay as close as possible to $50 or $60. Some of the cards, especially in the extra deck, are going to be a little more expensive, but there are a lot of very viable options. This is not a full extra deck, pardon me. This is just a few suggestions to help make this deck, but this deck does not need the extra deck to work. Obviously, there are a few cards in here that will rely on it, but still, let's get started with the deck. I'll try to explain a few combos or a few whys on a few tech cards as we move on. So first of all, we play 3 Darkest Diabolos, Lord of the Lair. This card is a beast. Like it is a dragon, but I mean it's a beast. Like it blows a lot of things. Your opponent cannot tribute this face-up card on the field and cannot target it with a card effect. So basically, it can't be targeted and it can't be tributed. So no Kaiju Wing, no Winged Dragon of Roz, I believe. Well, Sphere Mode. This card is immune to a lot of things except for, board wipes. But still, it's pretty good. And it's a 3000 attack beat stick. Easily summonable dark dragon monster. If a dark monster you control is tributed, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your graveyard or hand, which is very easy to do, especially if you send it to the grave with another card effect from this deck. And you can tribute 1 dark monster. Your opponent places 1 card from their hand on either the top or bottom of the deck, and you get to choose that, so that's pretty cool. So 3 of these, main beat stick of your deck. Lilith, Lady of Lament. 3 times, a 2000 attack monster that, although it loses attack when you normal summon it, you can use its effect to quick effect, tribute her or any other dark monster, and reveal 3 normal traps from your deck. Your opponent randomly chooses 1, it's set on your field, the rest is shuffled back. So using the field spell, this can tribute your opponent's monster on their own turn, and on your own turn, you can tribute her again, so sort of, try to find a way to boost your field or whatever. But, if your opponent is about to kill her, it's always better to tribute her than allow your opponent to wipe her off the table. So, next, we have Arima, the Wicked Warden, 3 times. This is basically the terraforming of your deck, while also being kind of like an allure-ish. It's weird how to explain this, but basically it's a beat stick that can search your field spell or allow you to draw cards, which is great because sometimes you want monsters and sometimes you want your field spell. Sometimes you want both, which is a little sad, but 3 times this card, great card to run in here. Duke Shade, the Sinister Shadow Lord. So this is a great way of tributing your opponent's monsters and gaining some attack on your board. And it's a 2000 defense monster, and it's dark, so it allows you to use one of the other cards you will see later on in this profile. But basically, with your field on the board, you can tribute one of your opponent's monster, plus, or not necessarily, but you could also tribute your own monsters, and this card gains 500 attack for each of those monsters you tributed. And when it's special or normal summon, you can target 1 level 5 or higher dark monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand, so you can recycle one of these bad boys. It's not necessary, but it's good when you need to discard some stuff. So yeah, that's a pretty useful card. Only play 1, but there is 1 in the side deck. I don't really use side decks for these types of decks, but it's interesting to run more than 1. We have the Supreme King combo. Yes, Ancient Fairy Dragon has been banned, and that really hit this deck hard, because usually you'd want to use your Destrudo and Supreme King to fuel your field presence and sometimes blow the opponent's fields off too. But still, this is a great combo because this twice with Supreme King Gate 0 allows you not only to have some dark presence on your field, but also to have some fodder for your Allure of Darkness, an easy search of one card, summon this, whether it's a special summon, a pendulum summon, which is now possible because of these two cards together. But you know, this allows you to do pendulum summons, it gives you a 1800 attack beat stick, it's a dark monster for Allure, especially this card for Allure, very good combos. This is a level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I believe. Yeah, so it's a level 7. You could do some combos with that depending on what you want to play, but it gives you a few combos, I guess. But mostly, it's because of the search effect, the Allure target, and the pendulum summoning. And you have one Destrudo because you don't want more than one now that Fairy Dragon is banned. This card is still very powerful and easily sendable to the grave, I guess. You can easily send it to the grave, is what I mean. Yes, you do have to pay half your life points, but sometimes it's worth it, especially in this deck where you have close to no protection, and 3000 defense sometimes is actually pretty good for you. It's also one of the only tuners you have in here, so if you want to use your extra deck for other things than link summoning, this will be your guy. We have Armageddon Knight twice. You could play 3, but I find that 2 is more productive. You don't want to draw more than 2 in your opening hand, and let me tell you, it happens. It legit happens. It's a 40 card deck, it could happen, and it happened when I played test. So this is great because you can send Diabolos, you can send Destrudo. That gives you 2 different combo pieces for depending on what else you have in your hand. But you can also send some different stuff if you just want your Supreme King Dragon Dark Worm in your grave for your next turn. Feel free to do so. I mean, Armageddon Knight will obviously get destroyed, or you know, it will leave the field some way or another. So you could set up your next turn, I guess. But yeah, you could play 3, but obviously there are 4 cards you want to send to the grave most of the times, maybe a 5th or 6th later on, but this is just good for milling and dark targets. We have Tour Guide from the Underworld. This is limited at 1 at the moment, but this is such a great card in here. It allows you to summon your Lilith, which is over here, and it will still have, well, she will still have her 2000 attack when she is summoned with Tour Guide. So, yeah, she loses her effect for the turn, or basically forever, because you can't tribute her anymore to gain her effect. You can tribute her, but you won't get the effect. Still, this allows you to go into some Link monsters, to some XYZ monsters, or Exceeds monsters. This also allows you to get some attack on the board, and some easy tribute targets for multiple reasons. It also mills your deck, so it's a very useful card in here. We have Skarm, Maël Branche of the Burning Abyss. So this is a very good target with Tour Guide. This is always a very good card to use in this deck for multiple reasons. The high defense, the dark target, the easy special summoning, easy combos with this card right here. You can do a lot of things with this, and that's why it's such a great card. It also gives you a search at the end of the turn, right? Next card, Blackwing Steam the Cloak. One of the more expensive cards of this deck, which is kind of funny because it's not even a fiend. But this is a tuner, level 3 dark, so already a lot of reasons to play it. But this also allows you to tribute one monster to special summon it back from the graveyard. The only downside is that if you use that effect, and you want to use a synchro summon with it, all the other synchro materials monsters need to be Blackwing. But here's the catch. You can use this level 3 after tributing one of your opponent's monster using your field spell, and another level 3 to make XYZ or a Link, which is not a synchro, so you can use this. Also, it gives you a token, which is a very awesome thing, because this allows you to protect yourself, but also to Link spam, and this card is such a great card right here. Summon it, use it for anything like a Link summon or anything really, and then use its effect with LAIR to tribute an opponent's monster, bring it back. So you basically have the card you Link summoned using it, and you have your token from when it was sent to the graveyard, and you have it from getting rid of an opponent's monster. So you can basically go into a link 3 or 4. A lot of combos possible with this card. I would only play 1 because 2 or 3 will get cloggy in your hand, and you don't really want it to be on the field too often. Usually you'd use this from the graveyard by either discarding it or sending it from deck to grave, but you know, it is a viable option, and it's a little tech choice, really. Lair of Darkness 3 times, because this is the reason you are able to disrupt your opponent's plays. Yes, you play some trap cards, but this is the reason why they are viable. All face-up monsters on the field become dark, and once per turn, if you need to tribute a monster to activate a card effect, you can tribute a dark monster your opponent controls. So basically, any monster affected by this is a target for your cards that need to tribute a dark monster. And, well, that's only once per turn, and it's only 1 dark monster, so don't expect too much out of this. You need to calculate when to use properly your disruptions. But still, once per turn during the end phase of a turn, well, basically you special summon as many torment tokens to the field of the turn's player equal to the amount of monsters tributed. So that's, you know, it's good, but that effect is something you want to see more on your turn, but at the same time, it's the end phase, so you don't mind if they are on the opponent's field if you find a way to do some piercing battle damage, or if you find a way to tribute them during your own turn to gain advantage. Not only are you using their fodder, but you're also getting your own tokens at the end of your turn, which is a very good way to go into link summoning, by the way, guys. We have Allure of Darkness, because 3 of them is not enough. Honestly, this is a great way to gain your monsters to your hand. You play almost half your deck as monsters, if not half exactly. So this is a great way to get rid of those cloggy hands, and it's also a great way to mill your deck. It's also a good way to bait those opponents' ashes, because, you know, Ash Blossom can be a pain when you search for your field spell. At least if they stop this, you don't have to banish anymore. So it's 1 for 1, basically, because you use 1, they use 1. But at least you know they won't ash anything else that turn, and, well, it's a good card in general, you know, guys. You use 1 Foolish Burial, because sending some stuff like Diabolos, Destrudo, or Steam can be very useful in here, or even Darkworm. It's also a very good card to send with Foolish going first. We also have Monster Reborn, because it's easy to send some cards to the grave, but sometimes you need them back. That is the very good card for that. There is also a different card, a trap card that is actually searchable with Lilith. Back to the Front, I believe the name is. It's a rare trap that came out in Code of the Duelist. Basically, those 2 are very viable options. If you can't find a Monster Reborn or it's too expensive for you, get the trap instead. It's just that I find this is quicker, and we already have a few traps in here, so you don't need that many more traps. That will stop your first turns being capable of doing a lot, especially if you're going second. This deck is not especially good at going second, so Monster Reborn does help when your opponent stops you from doing a lot of things. Enemy Controller, because this is such a great card in here, it's ridiculous. If you have your field spell on the board, you can use this to tribute an opponent's monster and take control of an opponent's monster. It's ridiculous. And if your opponent does not have anything that can be tributed, like if they are playing a Diabolos, at least you can put it in defense and stall. That's the best way, really, to use Enemy Controller when you have no targets to tribute on your opponent's board, or if you don't have your field spell, at least it can stall, and stalling is important. Also, you can use this on your own turn to go over some defense stuff or whatever. We have Twin Twisters, because discarding some big monsters to destroy your opponent's back row is important. You don't have a lot of things in here that stops your opponent from playing spell and traps. You focus on disruption and monsters, so this is necessary. You need this. You could play some Cyclones if you want, but this is necessary. It also allows you to send some Destrudos or Diabolos or whatever. When you go second, you want to see this and, let's say, Darkworm, because you can discard Darkworm, blow 2 of your opponent's back row, special Darkworm, search for your gate, and that's just 2 cards, and you basically searched 1, special 1, and blew 2. That's like 4 cards that have been gained in exchange for 1. So, I mean, it's very good. Called by the Grave twice, because your opponent ashes or draws you, you are screwed. You do not want your opponent to draw you after an allure, or you don't want your opponent to ash you when you search for your field spell, because you need that to get board presence. You need the field spell to survive most of the time, because if you don't have it, and you don't have any monsters because you've been solemn striked or you're warninged or whatever, this is the stuff that helps you survive. This helps you against opponents stopping you, but also helps you against them going off, let's say using Invoked, or using ABCs, or using Gokis. This stops Goki's effects from working, because you can banish them so they don't get to use them anymore, but their effects are negated too. So that's a very good card against the current meta. It's ridiculous. It even stops mirror matches, because, you know, this deck uses effects a lot that work in the grave. Basically, this special summons itself from the graveyard most of the time, or from the hand, but usually from the grave because you want it there. So if you can banish this when your opponent uses its effect, they're screwed. If your opponent plays Lilith, stop it. Bang. Done. If your opponent plays Arima, it discards from the hand to the grave, and then the effect activates. So, you know, basically it's a hand trap and basically that means that you can stop its effect. You can banish Supreme King Dragon Darkworm, you can banish Destrudo, you can banish whatever they send to the grave, you can banish Skarm, you can banish Steam. Mirror matches suffer a lot from being banished, and this is the card that makes it happen. So this is like the best disruption you can play against most of the meta decks or mirror matches. Even Trickstars suffer a bit from this because they have a lot of hand traps and they need sometimes to revive stuff with reincarnation from the grave. It's just such a great card nowadays. And it's cheap. It's a common. It's like 50 cents or $2. I don't remember quite exactly. It fluctuates between those, but you know, it's a very cheap card. Now we're off to the traps. As you can see, there are many traps. We have 2 Grinning Grave Viruses. You can play 3 if you want, but I find that this is not necessarily the best card. It's a very good card, very versatile, because no matter what your opponent has, if it has at least 500 attack or more, and if it has less than 3000 attack, you can just get rid of that, no matter. As long as you have your field in this, boom, they're gone. The thing is that if you're playing against ABCs, this will not use their resources in a negative way. Yes, they won't get their effects, but their effects don't activate from the deck anyways, and that gives them pieces in the graveyard to, you know, summon ABC on their turn. This does not stop ABC. If your opponent plays Invoked, yes, okay, they'll just send some Mekk-Knights or some hand traps to the grave, and basically they'll gain advantage in the next turn. They don't need the effects of the cards in their grave. They need to banish the cards in their grave. So, you know, this helps you against a lot of decks, but it also hurts you depending on what you're facing. That's why it's only at 2 and not at 3. Eradicator Epidemic Virus. This is a very useful card. Tribute a monster with 2500 or more attacks. So you got Diabolos, you have a few options in your extra deck. You have, basically, you also have access to your opponent's monsters if you have your field on the board. But yeah, basically you call spell or traps. You check all spell and traps on your opponent's field, so that's a free look at whatever your opponent has, and you check their hand, and all cards they draw until the end of your opponent's 3rd turn after discard activation. And it says draw. It doesn't say draw phase, draw, you know? So it means that even if they use a lure, you get to see whatever they draw. Or, for example, desires, you get to see whatever they draw. And if it's a spell or a trap, depending on what you called, destroy that. Destroy all the cards of the type you called. This is insanely powerful in here. You only want to play 1 because it could be cloggy because of the 25 attack clause, but this is insanely powerful in here. You need to play this. Full Force Virus. The reason why we're only playing 2 Grinning is because we're playing 1 Full Force. It's a 2000 or more defense target, and trust me guys, you have many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have 6 in your own deck, but if you summon some monsters from the extra deck, or your opponent summons monsters from their extra deck that are not link monsters, that's more target for you. And this basically is just like this card, but it's more about monsters with 1500 or less defense. It's not necessarily always useful, but it is capable of doing a lot depending on what you're facing. This against Trickstars, they don't get to summon crap because you just blow their hand and cards they draw for 3 turns. So basically, you can cripple them a bit. We have Metaverse twice because we're not playing Terraforming. This is cheaper than Terraforming for some reason, and I find it more efficient because you can search this while you can't search Terraforming. Yes, Terraforming works on your own turn, but this has a different effect. Take 1 field spell from your deck and either activate it or add it to your hand. So basically, you could activate this to get a field spell during your opponent's turn on board. That is not ashable because it's activated and not actually, summoned or searched. It's just activated. So that is a very good way to stop your opponent from ashing you or drawing you or whatever. And also, this allows you to surprise your opponents if they use, let's say, their Twin Twister to blow this face down card you had because they were scared of your other traps because, they know what you're playing. Well, basically, activate this, and they wasted their Twin Twister, and you get your field, which allows you to use your other back row to disrupt them that turn. And we have triple Torrential Tribute to finish the deck off at 40 cards. I couldn't find these 2 other Torrential Tributes. They're used in other decks I have, and it's really just a mess to find everything in the Switch sleeves, so I just decided to put these in. But it's basically 3 Torrential Tributes. Very cheap card, very powerful card in here. It's searchable. You don't often have monsters, and board wipes are very good to stop your opponent from OTKing you. If you just used Eradicator Epidemic Virus to destroy your opponent's spell cards, well, they can still get monsters, and this is how you stall them while you get your board presence back. So this deck runs pretty smoothly. Basically, you want to get your field spell, and you have a lot of ways to search it. And you want to get your disruption going, and you have a lot of ways to do that. You don't really need that much monster presence, but it's always necessary to actually deal the damage. So most of the times you will try to use these guys, or you will try to find a way of using these to your advantage. A very quick look at an extra deck. This is far from being complete. There are 7 cards in here out of 15, but it's just some quick suggestions, cheap suggestions for you guys, so you don't have to buy like the $200 of Firewall, Borreload, and Nightmare cards. This is a lot cheaper. We have Underclock Taker, which is dark and has a lot of options. You can easily use this with, let's say, some Link Spiders on your tokens to actually make this guy, and this has some capabilities, which is very nice. We have Dark Strike Fighter, a level 7 that allows you to tribute 1 monster to inflict damage to your opponent equal to the tributed monster's level on the field times 200. Your opponent summons a big monster, let's say they summon Blue Eyes something or whatever. It's a level 8, Make this, tribute it, they lose 1600 life points, and they're monsters, so, you could just attack for 26, and that's, like 4200 damage in 1 turn. Yes, you used your Destrudo or your Steam, but, this is a very good way of doing some very awesome combos. We have Black Rose and Black Rose Moonlight, or Moonlit, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, Board Wipe and Board Control, very good options right here. We have Clear Wing Synchro Dragon because if you're going first, let me tell you that these 3 options are useless. This may be okay, but it's not going to be able to protect itself, and 24 is not that great. But these, you do not want to summon those on the first turn. And if you have nothing that can protect you on your first turn, you're going to be in trouble. So Clear Wing is a very good way to have a decent attack and protect itself, or your other cards, depending on what your opponent plays. Yes, it's not optimal against XYZs or against Link monsters, but it's still very powerful against fusion, synchros, and effect monsters. This will help you a lot. And this can work against True Dracos. FYI, guys. We have a very, very affordable option of FA Dawn Dragster. Easy, summonable, level 7 monster, only 2000 defense, and the attack is not that different. It's 2100 attack, I believe, or something like that. If this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage. So you know, those tokens we mentioned earlier from the field spell, this actually lets you capitalize on those. Also, each time an FA spell or trap card or effect is activated, you increase this card's level by 1. So you don't play any, but if your opponent plays any, this still gains levels and attack. Once per turn, when your opponent activates a spell or trap card, that's a quick effect, you can reduce this card's level by 2, and if you do, negate the activation, and if you do that, destroy that card. You can summon this in defense mode with 2000 defense, and you can negate one spell or trap card your opponent plays per turn for 3 turns. That's good. That is good. And if this is in defense, the defense will not change. It's only the attack that's affected by the level. So, you know, it's in defense mode, and you have your field spell on board, so the opponent can't do much except for, you know, trying to play their spell on traps, but you can negate 1 per turn, and then when you know that this will be destroyed, full force. It's a 2000 or more dark monster, and voila, you just screwed them up for more damage, or more disruption, or whatever. So, you know, it is very viable in this deck. It's ridiculously viable if you start with Darkworm, Destrudo, and Full Force. Very viable option right here. Negate 1, disrupt your opponent, and have fun. And finally, we have Dante, Traveler of the Burning Abyss. Very good card in here. This is actually one of the more expensive cards of the deck. The premium gold one, which is the most cheap version, I guess, is very expensive. It's like $12 Canadian for this random card. But this is awesome. You have a lot of level 3 monsters, and this helps you mill your deck. So you can send some Diabolos, some Destrudos, some Darkworms, or whatever to the grave. This can attack your opponent's monsters pretty easily and protect you when it changes back to defense. And if you used Scarm to make it with Tour Guide, well, when this dies, recycle your Scarm. Enjoy. Easy, very easy card, and you don't need more than one. So this is just a few suggestions, you know? But yeah, basically that is the deck. I hope you guys who were interested in this enjoyed. Obviously, there is a lot of room for improvement, but this is the most budget yet efficient way I found of making this deck work. There are obviously some other cards you can play in here just for the fun of it, but you know, you don't need to play these. It's just some very viable options if you can't find some of these cards or if they're out of your budget. Those are also some very viable options that I just showed you guys. So, as I said, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to see more deck profiles, please leave a suggestion down below. I enjoy making these, especially the budget ones, because, you know, I've been there before. I've been playing the game since the beginning, so at first I wasn't capable of buying the more expensive decks, and I really wanted to play. So I'm really happy to help you guys be able to enjoy the game while being on a budget. Until next time, guys, it's been a pleasure, and Penem out.